Welcome to another episode of Meller Notes podcast. This podcast that is always here to help you creating content on your career, your leadership, your management, everything that can impact the way that you are dealing with your personal and professional development. My name is William Meller, and today we have again some very interesting topics, researchers, and different things to discuss on our discovery or walk together on what is happening out there that is relevant to be analyzed and discussed. As always, we are not going to explore on the hype or in the noisy that is around there. Those things that people are screaming on your ears or making you call your attention. Stop what you're doing now. We are going to step back and look to those that make some difference. And as always, we are going to start this with a story that can connect very well with our topics today. Let's go. Are you ready? In 1914, a man called Ernest Shackleton would start a very incredible exploration and adventure. He would leave England with 27 men with a very clear goal that would be to cross Antarctica for the first time. That was going to be a very impressive thing and the first time in the human history that someone would cross from one side to another. Something, as I said, no one had done before. So a big mission. The ship called Endurance would leave England with all those 27 men and Ernest Shackleton on board in and start the expedition, start this mission. But in October 1915, they would actually get stuck. They would get stuck in a place that is called the Weddell Sea. So frozen in place, no way back, no way forward, not possible to move the ship. And with that, the mission changed completely. Because in October 1915, the hull will start to break and the ship, Endurance, would actually sink. The whole and original plan was now missed and they need to focus on something else. What is this something else then? Well, for Ernest Shackleton, leading the expedition was to make sure that himself and the 27 men with him would be able to survive, to come back to their families alive. A very impressive thing as well, just as big as crossing Antarctica, right? But Ernest would put all his focus and attention to the new plan. He would decide what to eat, when to rest, when it's time to move forward, when it's time to stay calm and relax a bit, when it's moment to, find more food. He will take those important decisions. And for more than a year, he would be the one leading that thing. He would be responsible for knowing and to making sure that people were focusing on the right things. And in April 1916, he would cross more than 800 miles with a very small boat to find help. And he would succeed on that because in August of the same year, 1916, all the 27 men would be rescued and not one single death will be part of that expedition. A very impressive thing for both Shackleton itself, from his leadership aspect, but also from a human aspect, surviving with those people in a very extreme condition would be something that would uh, be scenario for books and movies later on. Actually, the book about this expedition, it's a very great reading, a very impressive one as well, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy if you go into that adventure reading about it. So Shackleton knew when it was time to change the plan, to change the focus, to look ahead, because he had in his mind when he left England that he will do something that would be his mission, that would be the big human. He would go to enter to history with that thing, right? But something changed. Something changed completely, and he had to focus again on what is the right thing right now in front of me. Of course, it is survival. And in this case, he would know when it's time to move forward, when it's time to walk, when it's time to rest. The problem, and we are going to see the connection here, is that we are not asking the same questions ourselves. When it's time to move forward, to move faster, to accelerate, when it's time to relax, stay where we are, this is actually a problem. The market is always asking for more performance, to more deliverables, to reach more impressive goals. High performance became almost like an identity, something that should be part of every single professional. They should deliver more with a good cadence. They should deliver, reach their goals every week. And next week, the goals is going to be a bit more stretch and they need to reach it again. So performance, it's being part of human work. And the more we grow in terms of economic perspective, the more we also expect from the people working on those companies. But this problem, unfortunately, it ignores a very simple biological reality. That is that humans' brain and body were not made to work in that high performatic way all the time. That is very easy to see when it's more related to the body, right? Because you can actually see something happening in front of you. So take for example with sports, if a team, a soccer team is playing 3 games a week with the same players, what is going to happen? It's quite obvious. Injuries would start, muscles will not be able to sustain that rhythm, and people were going to get injured and have problems. And it could be muscles problems, it could be other problems, but they will not be able to stay in high performance for all those games and keep themselves healthy during the whole season. That's why in sports, we have the preseason, we have the training moments, we have the calendar of the games, and everything is prepared in a way that you're not going to play a World Cup every 3 months, for example, right? You have the different seasons where things are happening. And in championships or national leagues, where you have a very strong calendar that you expect people to be playing more and more, you also see more injuries happening. This is data. This is available. It's actually a big thing right now in soccer, but I know it's almost the same in many different sports. The more you need high performance athletes to be performing, the more you're going to see injuries if you repeat that, not respecting the biological way the body works, needing the rest, needing the time to relax, to prepare, to train, and be prepared for those high performance moments, right? Unfortunately, for the brain, it is not that easy to see those signs. You are going to have in the knowledge worker the request for more performance, for more deliverables, for more hours available. And what you're going to see after a while, people will start to burn out or leave their company or stop delivering because they cannot handle that expectation for high performance all the time. And here I'm not making a call for, less work or that we should change the way we work. My call is that you cannot only expect to grow without consequences if you don't understand what is healthy in terms of goal. In 2019, quite recently, the World Health Organization they included burnout in the international classification of disease. And this is now something that people understand. But of course, it's not only about burnout, right? It's not only about the final problem. It is also about, again, performance and deliverables. Because if you, as a leader, you expect your team to deliver more and better, you should also understand about those cycles and the seasons. And when is the best moment to push your team for high performance? And when is the best moment to actually step back and give them the time to prepare, to relax in a way that they can deliver, more steady deliverables instead of those that are pushing for more dedication and high concentration. So I know that it's hard to measure because it's not that easy to say when the brain is on its peak, when it's like you have a worker that is using their brain like an X%. It's not possible to measure that, right? But as a leader, you understand when are the peaks, when you expect more, when you expect a little bit less from the team, and you can divide it in a way that is actually connected to how humans work. There's a professor at the Stanford University called John Pencavel. He is an economics professor, and he studied the relationship between the hours worked and real productivity. And from this research, he discovered that people working above 55 hours a week would have like zero gain or productivity gains related to someone working less hours. We're talking about concentration work, like knowledge work, right? In the same research, he was able to prove that people working 70 hours would produce the same as those working 55 hours. And that is because it is the way that the brain works. It's not because of the specific people who have different skills. It's just how the human brain works for concentration activities, for knowledge work. There's another research from our Microsoft Work Trend Index from 2025 that will run a big analysis of 31,000 workers in 31 different countries. And 68% would say they do not have enough time to focus. They do not have enough time to concentrate. So, see the reflection here. The system rewards the high performance, right? When people are delivering more and more and more. But humans work in cycles, and they need to respect the seasons of those cycles to work and deliver more. If the companies don't understand that, they will expect people to be working more hours, and actually, they would be producing less. Less in quantity, but less also in quality, because the human brain was not projected to have this kind of push for more in terms of number of hours and stay productive. That is what the research is showing us. That's what the data is showing us. So, real high performance, and that goes for you, that goes for me, it depends on the rhythm. That's why the cadence or staying consistent on something is much more important than the amount of hours you spend on that. It doesn't make any sense to go to the gym like 40 hours in 1 week and relax for 6 weeks, right? It's better that you go for 45 minutes, 1 hour every day, or even less, but we stay consistent over the time. And the same goes for deliverables. If you are consistent with your deliverables, with the dedication you put on some kind of activity, a little bit every single day is much better than a lot and then have a problem in your brain and not being able to keep doing that for more than a week, for more than a month, or more than a year, depending on the kind of work you do. It's better to move steady but continuously forward instead of put a lot of effort and see your brain fry, not be able to move forward. With that reflection on the case of performance, our story from the beginning of this podcast has always a great connection with every single topic that I selected here. And I first select the topics, a little bit of the background here. I first select the topics on my research, and then I try to think on the books I read. I use a little bit of research also to think on which stories that actually could connect to what is happening right now. And sometimes on this podcast, but also on my channel, I like to bring things that are not specific, recent findings, but articles that are relevant to be discussed because for some reason we are forgetting the basics. And the basics are very important. And with this one, it's not different. This is not something big from the news, but it's something that I feel that people are missing to reflect. What if exactly the thing that brought you here, where you are right now in your career, is the thing that is actually stopping you to move forward, to move to what is next? What is the next step for you? Well, the market and the companies would always reward people who execute well, who solve problems, who are able to deliver on their square of work. And of course, reward in many cases, in majority of the case, can mean a promotion. So this person is delivering so well and for a long time in this role, so maybe he is ready for the next challenge. And that's how the ladder in the corporate work, the map of career normally works, right? What is the problem with that? The problem is that many times you promote the one who is actually the better on doing some activity, like sales, for example. He's the best salesman or the best saleswoman in the team, and you promote that person to lead the teams of salespeople. Now is a sales manager. What happened then? You lost a great salesperson. And what you have? A not that good leader for that team. This is connected to a study and to a work from the Canadian educator Lawrence J. Peter, who in 1969 would publish a study that would become known as the Peter Principle. The Peter Principle has one idea, and this idea is something that I would like to read very slowly so you can pay attention, okay? In any hierarchy, employees tend to be promoted until they reach their level of incompetence. Again, in any hierarchy, employees tend to be promoted until they reach their level of incompetence. Quite a harsh one, right? But think about the salesperson example. Maybe he actually became a great leader for the team of salespeople. And then what happened after some time? The company would promote that person again to another position. And in that position now, the sales skills are not relevant anymore because he is responsible now to stay in contact with the board. He need to negotiate budget for his team. He need to negotiate and hire who is going to come from his team. He need to focus on the people, developing them. So he's not focusing on his or her main skills. That is, in this case, selling, right? And that is the problem with the Peter principle, that companies should, is at least what the study is showing, companies should focus more on the skills and abilities rather than just promoting people for the sake of the promotion. You know, to lead a team, you need a set of activities, and to move to a next stage after becoming the lead of the team, like become a manager of the sector, for example, you need a lot of different activities that are very different from those who actually made you came to the position that you are right now. And the same goes, for example, for software development. You have a great software developer. He's the best one on producing great code with great quality. It doesn't mean that this person is going to be the best to manage other developers. Maybe he or she lacks a little bit of the skills needed to negotiate with people, to work with, the performance of the team, to put people together, to build a culture for the team. And that is much more than just creating the lines of code. I'm not saying that this is the rule. I'm just taking the example here for us understanding the Peter principle, okay? Because I am sure that many great engineering managers were great on coding, on programming, and they will become great managers as well. That is something that I see happening all the time. But we need to be careful and also reflect to our career. The position I am right now, what are the skills that made me arrive here? And are those skills, the ones I'm developing right now and the skills I have, the same that would make me move to my next ambition or to my next desired role? That is a question that people don't ask themselves that frequently. You know, the Peter principle is of something that I really recommend that you have some time to read and explore a little bit more. But I want to bring a little bit more data for this discussion. I study from 2018 would research more than 50,000 workers from 214 different companies, And they would find exactly this evidence from the Peter Principle study. Companies who promoted their best performance into management roles, even when those performers didn't have a management or a leadership profile. Then another research from the Science Direct in connection with the Stanford Graduate School of Business would confirm that past performance in one role does not predict success in the next role. And they researched many different companies as well in many different kind of positions to make sure that this study and this data stay relevant. Because what we are basically concluding by the data is that your current performance in your current role doesn't mean that you are ready to be a good performer as well in a different kind of role that would require different kind of skills and abilities from you. There's another thing that I want to reflect on this topic before we close that down. That is on how we prepare ourselves to those kind of new challenges. Because if you have the skills you have right now in your role and you are performing very well on that, it, you can still have your ambition, right? You can still think and reflect about the role that you want to be. I do that all the time. That is part of the game. I made another video in my channel explaining that is something that you should be careful to not focus too much on the future, like what you want, and forget completely the learning curve that you have in front of you with the role that you have right now. But it's always a matter of balance. But how do you prepare? Because one way is always looking to the skills you have and try to make it more evident, make it even better. But are you stopping for a while to reflect about the skills that are needed in the role you want to move? Are you asking the people who are in those chairs right now to get some evidence and ideas about things that you need to develop in yourself? Think about that. Think about that in your next walk outside, okay? Because if your role, the title you have, the square you have in your current the role that you are playing right now, if that disappear for some reason next week, would your skills, the things that you have with you, within you, are those still relevant to keep your job in the same company? I'm asking that because during a redundancy process, for example, a company can go through a restructure and decide that different roles will disappear, not be needed anymore. They are the redundant roles. How about your skills, about the things that you are good executing and doing? Are those still relevant to keep your job? Think about that because the things that we keep with ourselves and our constant evolution or constant look for more formal or informal, but for education to stay qualified is what can keep ourselves relevant, not just for the company we're working right now, but for the market. With that, one topic always bring in the next one, right? Because what about your communication skills? How you think is that going right now? You know, every single company or team that we have some kind of discussion in like workshops and in congress and events, there's always something to say about communication, that the communication could be better, the communication could be more frequent, that they have a lack of, you know, asynchronous communication, or they have too many meetings. The problem is basically we never had so many communication happening around us when it comes to our work environment. And unfortunately, it never was so hard to actually make sure that the right message is being delivered. Isn't that very confusing? Think about the professionals who build themselves or develop themselves before the internet world. Those people will need to rely in content curation from magazines and from publication from their industries to stay up to date to what is happening right now, right around them. But how about us? We have the internet, we have the blogs, we have the social media. We know about what is happening all the time. Do we? I mean, think about yourself. Do you think you are someone well informed about your industry, the trends, what is happening, what is changing? Because there is data showing that the more communication evolves, unfortunately, people are getting less good quality and on the content they are consuming, and unfortunately, they are getting less informed about the world about them. And the same goes to our work or to what is happening inside our company. The company communicates a lot. There's a lot of different ways to communicate. We have the channels, the applications like Teams and Slack that we get information from people. Then we have email, and then we have many kind of different meetings, team meetings, daily meetings, meetings, information meetings, all kind of meetings, right? Your Our calendar for sure is not something that stay empty for a long time. But there's a research from Microsoft Work Trend Index from 2025 saying that employees receive an average of 150 messages and 120 emails per day. So 57% of those people or those people time is going to communication, meetings, emails, chats. Only 43% goes to actually creation or to the work itself, to execute the work. And then in the same research, we see that 68% of people are saying they do not have time to focus on their work. So we are communicating more, communicating in a very expressive amount of channels and layers, but we are apparently not being better in any sense from the past where we didn't have that many channels, but we're focusing on delivering the message. In another research, also from Microsoft, and recently in a congress, they discovered that 48% of employees and 52% of leaders would say that works feel more chaotic and fragmented than ever. So basically, what we are saying is more information is not the same as more clarity. And this is a big problem. Because communication is for sure one of the most important things for your career. If you don't communicate well, how people could know what you are doing and why you are doing what you're doing and how your work is connecting to the business goals and how your work is connected to what your team or the rest of the teams are delivering. Communication from your career perspective is very, very important, right? If you will think about the connections of this with your career development, it's even more crucial because if you're not able to make sure that you and your team are receiving the right amount of information on time and delivering the right information also on time, you are probably going to have many important gaps. And those gaps, they make projects fail, they make products have less quality. So the problem around communication is not only the communication itself, but all the consequences that came from that. And the problem, the reflection I want to make here is pretty much connected to this, to exactly this point. If you are communicating more, if we are communicating more, why the work is not improving the same qualitative way from that perspective? Because the feeling that meetings are being a problem or the feeling that we have too many channels, it's increasing in a bad way. People are more and more realizing that they are participating in bad meetings. Actually, many companies research with people internally. That is a research from another data I was reading recently in the Harvard Business Review. Companies research internally what is being the biggest inefficient way the companies spending their money. And many, many companies are getting back that the meetings are being one of those problems. You put a lot of people, those people have a price, right? That the hour has a price, a cost in this case. And you're putting all those people together for 1 hour and a half to discuss a problem that could have been an email. So meetings are actually one big problem for many companies in terms of cost and productivity. So we're focusing right now in so many different great innovation things like AI and new technologies. But are we not talking the same with the same importance about meetings and how to run better meetings? I get concerned about that, and I try to bring this reality to the teams I'm working on all the time because I believe that just by having better meetings and a better communication structure with our teams, we are going to see work improve in a good way. And that is also connected to this thing here, to the mental, to the brain, to the mental aspect of work. Because people who feel that they are in an environment with bad communication, they will start feeling pressure for two things. First, for maybe the fear of missing some information. They are afraid that they are missing some channel, they are missing some information that they should know. And the other way, they are concerned where they should inform about their work. If there is something that they should have said in a meeting, if there is something they should have communicated to their manager or to someone else, to some other team, this concern makes the brain not be able to concentrate on the work to execute right now, and it spark the attention in so many different layers all the time. And for the knowledge worker, this is a terrible thing because your focus, your concentration should go to the right things. And that's part of your energy, personal energy management. That is to know where to put your energy and your focus right now. If you are lacking a good communication in your team, if you're lacking a good communication around your peers at work, bring that reflection to your next discussion with them and try to bring the problem about bad meetings as something that your team should be addressing right now. Okay, with that reflection, we close the three topics, very connected, as I said, with the story from the beginning of the podcast. But the most important reflection here is always, what are you doing right now after those reflections? What are you doing after or walk together on those different topics? Because reflecting on them, it's one way, of course, to think on what is happening. And I mentioned here that professionals in the past would be much more up to date about what is happening around them because they had a good content curation from magazines, from industry and publications. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm looking to all the noise around us, everything that is happening, everyone screaming that something should get more attention today and other 200 things that get more attention the next hour. And I'm here, calming down and looking to what is happening, actually happening in the service, in the industry, and connecting everything to the sake of helping your career, your personal and professional development in the best way possible. My name is William Meller. Thank you for watching Meller Notes. Thank you for staying with me. See you in the next one.